Well, hello, friends and neighbors. John, your whiskey neighbor here, and welcome to my kitchen table on this fine Saturday afternoon. I thought I've been doing quite a bit of Scotch lately, and it was time to take a look at a bourbon. So today I've got something from Old Forester. This is Old Forester 1920 Prohibition style. It's pretty close to a barrel proof. This is bottled at 115, and well, we'll talk about it after the break. Thanks for staying with me. As I said in the short opener, I thought it was time to maybe take a look at a bourbon. This is from Old Forester. Now, I'm up in Alberta, Canada, and we actually just recently have been able to get a number of Old Forester products. Actually, the only ones that I've been able to get my hands on in Alberta are the regular Old Forester 86 proof, and then some single barrel releases. There's been at least two released into Alberta. Wine and Beyond had their release, and then Sierra Springs, just in Airdrie, had its. And then this Old Forester 1920 showed up, and I was able to grab it as I usually do on a good sale, so it wasn't a hard purchase. I don't know enough about the Old Forester Prohibition style bourbon. As I said in the intro, it's released at 115 proof or 57.5%. I understand that this bottle is third in a series, in the Whiskey Row series from Old Forester. I don't even know why that series exists, so someone better help me out on that. But I know this one was, at least what I've read about it says, it was to celebrate how whiskey would have been during Prohibition. As you know, Prohibition, right? When buying, producing, purchasing, consuming publicly alcohol was illegal. There were certain distilleries that were allowed to stay open and produce for medical reasons. A lot of them, produced other ethanol as well, like they stayed as stills. But these Old Forester was allowed to continue to produce whiskey because it was deemed medicinal. So they're one of the few distilleries, and I think I've even read, I haven't proven this, but that they're one of the oldest continuously run distilleries. So someone in Kentucky should proudly comment and say, yeah, that's right. But I think that's really awesome to have such an old history, and that they wanted to release something that was at least similar to how bourbon would have been made then. And as I understand it, they kept proof pretty low back then. It had to be released at 100 proof. And the comments that I was reading is that likely they put it even into the barrels pretty close to that. So my understanding of why we're at 115, why this is considered kind of barrel proof, or why the Old Forester 1920 Prohibition style had to be 115 is that the master distiller thought that's likely what it would have come out of the barrel at, because it would have been very close to 100, which is what it needed to be released or bottled at. So anyways, that's a little bit of history behind the 115, a little bit of history behind the style. Old Forester is part of Old Foreman group. They also make Woodford Reserve and a few others. I'm not sure what else I can tell you. There's no age stamp on this, so likely it's quite young. Between 4 and 6, I think is a fair ballpark for something that they're not going to proudly put on here, an age stamp. And I think the mash bill is what all bourbon out of Brown Foreman come out. So that would be a little bit more rye, somewhere around 18%, I think. So if I get this right, it's going to be 18 and about 10 barley, and then whatever the balance, 72% corn is likely the mash bill behind this. Let's talk a bit about this whiskey. Hope you have something to nose and taste along. Even better if you have an Old Forester product. Nose is, it's a little bit spicy, but not immediately. Kind of more welcoming type spice, like It's close to Christmas, but I was going to say, Christmassy spices. Light caramel, not overly sweet on the nose. A little bit of ethanol, so I think, the alcohol, but it's 57.5%, so not unusual and not glaring. Like, it doesn't smell like marker, just smells like strong alcohol. A little bit of vanilla. Now the spice settled down. I don't know why I got that up front. It's not, my notes wouldn't say spicy, so I'm glad it settled down. I don't find a lot of fresh fruit on the nose. I would say darker, older fruits. Yeah, so there's a little more toffee. Yeah, I think the spice nature, actually, my first nose is now changing into a little bit more of that alcohol tingle because it's fairly strong. So gentle toffees, a little bit of caramels, darker or subtle fruits, not too fresh. Nice nose. See how it tastes. Cheers. In the palate, I find really nose carries in. We've got caramel, toffee. Here I do get nutmeg, cinnamon, spices coming around. I'm still searching for the fruits. I know they're there, but it's more like maybe an old, I don't mean old, a cooked cherry, like a Christmas cake cherry. No, that's too sweet. The early finish or end of the palate, that's when I'm getting some nice oak barrel, some char, and some wood spice. That's end of palate or early finish, like you've swallowed and you're still kind of, ooh. But it actually fades quicker than I'd expect at 57.5. Often, for me, stronger alcohol keeps the flavors around longer. And I find the finish on this bourbon actually goes away fairly quick and leaves me just with a little bit of spice and barrel. Nice to come back into the nose and wake up the palate again. Yeah, I find it's a little bit flat for me in the palate. This is obviously a quality bourbon. It's released at a pretty high price where I'm at, which makes it a bit tough to recommend unless you're looking for a barrel proof or a higher proof bourbon. I have to say, it drinks, tastes, moves around like it's clearly been carefully selected. Even when I mention the stronger alcohol, it's not for me, not raw ethanol, like stuff that would really be, ooh, what's this? That actually increased the burn in the nose for me, but deepened the vanillas for me. Straighten the palate. Yeah, I think for most people, watering this is going to be a benefit. I prefer smaller sips of stronger alcohols, but this absolutely lightened the flavors, brought out a few different types of toffees, vanillas, candies, hard crack candies, whatever you're going for. But there is, for me, almost like a black tea, tannic, lightly bitter finish that stays with me with Old Forester Prohibition. And I feel like there's echoes of fruit. And I've read some people that it's the first thing that it's on their nose, it's through the palate, and I keep wanting that because my bias in bourbon is to have a little more fresh cherry or some fruit to balance the woody nature that I pick up a lot in bourbons. And this bourbon for me stays really close to the char, oak, caramel, vanilla, and doesn't have a sweet there's totally some sweetness in here, but a sweet balance to the wood and oak. And so this remains a good bourbon. Completely thankful that I got this. Of course, I got it for a great price. But I don't regret having it. I like having it on the shelf. I think it's a really nice packaging. The Whiskey Row series, they all look quite nice. And so, but it doesn't, like, I'm a sucker for barrel-proof bourbon, and I thought I was going to fall in love with this, and instead, I really enjoy it. Gladly to put it somewhere about 4 stars. But for the money, I wanted more. Really, I wanted it to be like my bourbon of the year or something like that, and it's not going to get there. Is it good? Yeah, you know what? I think it's a good quality bourbon. I can recommend it if you haven't had it. Certainly, if you like Old Forester, as I mentioned in Alberta, the regular 86, and then some of the single barrels, and then this are really all I've been able to get my hands on. And of those 4, and even the single barrels, I prefer this significantly over any of the other Old Forester products. But I'm not deeply experienced with Old Forester, so I better put that kind of caveat on there. So I'm not sure what you guys think of Old Forester. If you've had the Prohibition style, solid bourbon, but to me just stays, it's not one-dimensional, but stays in one area of flavors, and I'd love it to push over and out of just the barrel char. Great, thank you for joining me here. I hope the season has started well for all of you, and I look forward to connecting with you a few times yet before Christmas. Take care.